Hey Guardians, Mando here, and welcome back to another video. So, episode Echoes is now over, which means there are a few weeks until the next episode Revenant, is here. In this video, I'm going to be going over all the weapons that you're going to want to make sure that you have the patterns for and that you pick up before Revenant is here, as well as the rules that I think you should be looking for on these weapons. So, let's get into it. The first weapon I want to talk about is Lost Signal, which is a special stasis grenade launcher and is the first area denial frame that we have been given. This is definitely a weapon that you're going to want to pick up and make sure that you have the pattern for. It's great for clearing out groups of adds and basically acts as a legendary version of Witherhoard. Now, looking at the rules that you're going to want to put on this weapon, we're going to start off with confined launch and high velocity rounds. Now, these two options are obviously personal preference, but I personally like this combination because it ups my reload speed and also improves my stability, which definitely comes in handy whenever you're just pulling the grenade launcher out and spraying all over an area trying to kill a group of adds. It also won't hurt your velocity. For the third and fourth columns, you're going to want to look at either getting Lead from Gold or auto-loading holster. Lead from Gold is basically there just to make sure that you constantly have ammo, so if you are picking up heavy ammo, you're also going to get some special ammo when you pick that up. Then auto-loading holster is just great for general running and gunning, and then in the fourth column, you're going to want to pick up One for All. Now, the reason I am recommending this perk is because it's very easy to proc with this grenade launcher. So basically how it works is if you hit 3 different targets, you're going to increase the damage that the grenade launcher does by 35%, which is, like I said, very easy to proc with this grenade launcher because of its ability to just spray all over an area. So you pull it out, shoot at a group of adds, and you are instantly getting 35% increase to your damage. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are running a prismatic build, Lost Signal is very good for just shooting at an area and hitting a bunch of adds, which will actually fill up the darkness side of the meter that you need to fill up in order to go Ascendant. So if you're looking for something that'll fill that bar up rather quickly, this is definitely a good pick for that. Next on the list is Faithkeeper. Now, some of you may be skeptical about this pick, but hear me out. Yes, this is a precision frame, so not exactly the best frame when it comes to a rocket launcher, especially when we have adaptives and aggressive frames. But if you are ever in a boss fight where the boss moves all over the place, precision frames have built-in tracking with them, so it is a lot easier to hit that moving target and hit your shots. It will also come in handy if Bungie ever decides to do something like Pantheon again, where there are surges and modifiers that can increase different damage types. With that in mind, let's go over the rule that you're going to want to consider putting on this weapon. First of all, we want to put on Quick Launch and Impact Casing. We're going to want to go with Quick Launch because it increases the velocity of the rocket, but it also increases your handling, which allows you to ready and stow the weapon much quicker. Impact Casing is just a no-brainer because it does more damage when you make a direct hit with a rocket launcher. Then, in the third and fourth column, we're going to want to look at getting Auto-Loading Holster and Explosive Light. Auto-Loading Holster because who doesn't like their weapon to just load in the background for them and they don't have to worry about standing there and putting in another rocket. Then, Explosive Light because who doesn't like more bang for the buck when it comes to rocket launchers. Other perks that you may consider putting on this weapon is Clown Cartridge in the third column, as well as Bipod in the fourth column. Clown Cartridge simply because it will allow you to load multiple shots into the rocket launcher at the same time versus just one shot. Bipod is also great for whenever you're doing GMs and you just want to shoot off a bunch of rockets. If you were to pair that with Clown Cartridge, instead of just loading one shot into the magazine, you then end up having 4 shots that you can shoot back to back to back. Moving on to our next weapon, let's talk about Veiled Threat. Veiled Threat is a rapid-fire stasis auto rifle. Now, I know some of you are going to say that we already have stasis weapons, why do I need to pick up this new stasis auto rifle? Well, let me say that this auto rifle feels extremely easy to use. You can basically hold down the trigger and it feels like a laser just beaming enemies that are in your scope. With that said, let's look at the role that you're going to want to put on this weapon. Now, these obviously again are up to personal preference, but I personally went with hammer-forged rifling and accurized rounds, just because with it being a rapid fire, it doesn't exactly have the highest range, so this will help with that, but also makes it so you're not hurting your stability. Then in the third and fourth column, we're going to want to look at getting threat detector in the third column, just because if we're in a situation where there is adds close by, it helps with our stability and helps even more with holding down the recoil as we're holding down the trigger and keeping this already laser of a weapon even more stable. Not only that, it also helps with reloading if you happen to empty your mag and need a quick reload. Then in the fourth column, we can go with either Desperate Measures, which is great for a just regular damage perk that is based off of killing enemies and increasing your damage, or if you're running more of a stasis build, you can go with Headstone. Of course, if you don't exactly have to be running stasis in order to use Headstone, but if you're not running a build that's going to really benefit from Headstone, I would much rather just have a regular damage perk. Something else to mention with Veiled Threat is that it actually performs quite well in PvP. If you're going to take it into PvP, I would recommend putting Fragile Focus in the third column and Moving Target in the fourth column. Of course, you could opt for To the Pain instead of Fragile Focus, but like I said, this weapon is already like a laser, so I don't really think that you will need it in order to stay on target. Next is Sightline Survey. This is a 180 arc hand cannon, which I know is not exactly everybody's favorite, and not everybody likes 180s, but hear me out. First of all, let me say that the reason I am recommending this weapon is simply because there may be some out there who have not gotten the pattern for Posterity, which is another 180 arc hand cannon, but it comes from the Deep Stone Crypt raid. If that's you, then this is a good substitute. If that's not you, then feel free to move on to the next weapon in the video. Once again, first and second column are personal preference, but I went with hammer-forged rifling and accurized rounds, because very much like rapid-fire auto rifles, 180s do not have the greatest range, so this will help with giving this hand cannon more range. Then in the third and fourth column, we're going to want to get Enlightened Action in the third column and Volt Shot in the fourth column. This is the role that I personally would go with. Enlightened Action is particularly good with hand cannons because it is a perk that operates off of stacks, and hand cannons get 3 stacks with a single hit. So then when you pair that with Volt Shot, which jolts your next target when you reload after a final blow, you get a super fast reloading and ad clearing machine. Of course, you could also put Keep Away in the third column, which would improve the range on this weapon even more, plus also give you increased reload speed whenever enemies are not close by you. But why go with a perk that has a downside and could drop off when you need it most, when you can simply shoot something once and then have a faster reload with Enlightened Action? You could also go with Desperate Measures in the fourth column if you would rather have just a regular damage perk and not Volt Shot. Moving on, the next weapon on the list is more than likely not going to come as a shock to most, and that is Aberrant Action. Ever since the introduction of special rocket-assisted sidearms, they have become very popular amongst the community. This one is no different, and is the first solar rocket-assisted sidearm that we have been given. So, what should we put on this weapon? Well, in the first column, I would go with Smart Drift Control, and then in the second column, High Explosive Ordnance. Now, you may notice at this point that the sidearm has 0 range, which, even though it is a rocket-assisted frame, you can still feel the lack of range. So, make sure while you're crafting this that you choose a range masterwork so that you can at least have a minimum of 10 range. With that said, in the third column, there's only really one choice, and that is Heal Clip. This comes in clutch in high-end content because you are able to kill red bars very easily with the special weapon and reload quickly and quickly heal up when you do so. Then in the fourth column, we're going with, you guessed it, Incandescent. Of course, you could always go with a damage perk like Swashbuckler or Golden Tricorn, but why you would choose that over something that makes enemies go kaboom and spread Scorch to nearby enemies, I don't know. Next we have Corrasion, which is a arc heavy burst pulse rifle. Much like Veiled Threat, this weapon feels very good to use and acts pretty much like a laser whenever you are shooting it. The role that I would recommend on this weapon is corkscrew rifling in the first column and accurized in the second column. Then when it comes to the third and fourth column, I would recommend either going with Enlightened Action or Pugilist, depending on what you're looking for. Then in the fourth column, I would recommend either Volt Shot, Frenzy, or Swashbuckler. So, if you're gonna go with Volt Shot, what better perk to pair with it than Enlightened Action and get a really fast reload after a final blow? Of course, if you went with a damage perk like Swashbuckler and Frenzy, a fast reload won't hurt either. Another combination I think would work well is Pugilist and Swashbuckler, since Pugilist will give melee energy on final blows, and after a melee final blow, you will have all 5 stacks of Swashbuckler, giving you a 33% increase to your damage, allowing you to mow down adds even faster, feeding into Pugilist and getting your melee back even faster. Now, the next 2 weapons I'm going to talk about aren't exactly new weapons, but are returning weapons, but are still worth getting. The first of which is Martyr's Retribution. This is a solar wave frame and was the first and original wave frame grenade launcher that we ever got in Destiny 2. The downside to the return is that they are not craftable, so you are going to have to fight RNG to get the rolls that you want. With that said, the perks you're really going to want to look for on Martyr's Retribution is Heal Clip in the third column and Incandescent in the fourth column. As for the first and second column, ideally we would want something like Volatile Launch and High Velocity rounds, mainly because it would help with the velocity of the grenade launcher round and it increases the blast radius, which some of you may be wondering, why increase the blast radius on a wave frame grenade launcher? Well, that's because it increases the wave that goes out whenever the round hits the ground, allowing it to cover more ground and hit more enemies. Of course, if you don't get these 2 in the first and second column, that's perfectly fine. Of course, you could opt for auto-loading holster instead of Heal Clip if you would much rather just run and gun. If you are wondering, does this grenade launcher match up with other waveframes such as Forbearance, which can have chain reaction, or Undercurrent, which can roll with Volt Shot, the answer is yes. Throw on a solar build with Ember of Ashes equipped as a fragment, and you are scorching and igniting enemies pretty much everywhere you fire this weapon. The second returning weapon I would recommend, and is the last weapon on our list today, is Perfect Paradox. This is a rapid-fire kinetic shotgun, and I believe is going to become the king of 1-2 punch shotguns used in melee builds. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Once again, this is a weapon that is not craftable, so you will have to put your fate in RNG to get the roll that you want. Ideally, we want perks in the first and second column that are going to increase the range of the shotgun. So something like small bore and accurized rounds would be perfect. Then, for PvE, I would recommend Field Prep and 1-2 Punch in the third and fourth column. Field Prep because it increases the ammo reserves for the shotgun, and 1-2 Punch because of, well, it increases your melee damage when you hit all the pellets in a shot. Now, why do I think that this is going to be the king of 1-2 Punch melee builds? Well, that's because of the origin trait that was given to this weapon whenever they reintroduced it, which is Cast No Shadows. Basically, how this trait works is that whenever you deal melee damage, it reloads a small amount of ammo from reserves into your magazine. That's right, you heard correctly. Melee damage, not a final blow, just melee damage. So, with a melee build, you're going to shoot the shotgun, melee the target, which in turn is going to reload that round back into the magazine, shoot again, and repeat. This allows you to not have to worry about reloading the weapon and just constantly shoot and melee non-stop until you run out of ammo, which you shouldn't really have to worry about with the extra reserves that you're getting from Field Prep in the third column. Now, If you're looking for a PvP role, I would still recommend anything that increases the range in the first and second column. Then in the third column, I would go with Slide Shot because it reloads a portion of the magazine whenever you slide and increases the range for a few seconds after sliding. Then in the fourth column, I would recommend going with Opening Shot. Well, Guardians, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please consider dropping a like as it really helps me out, and leave a comment if there is a weapon you feel that I overlooked, or just have a different take on one that I have on the list. Of course, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more Destiny 2 videos like this one in the future. But for now, I'll see you in the next one.